Holy crap, it's here! Finally! After months of waiting and hearing about tidbits about it, I can finally play Epic Mickey 2! Well, let's not delay the inevitable now, shall we?
Several days later.
Okay, let's talk about Epic Mickey 2.
I just want to start off by saying that I love the first Epic Mickey. Sure, there are some flaws with the game, like some of the gameplay and sometimes the camera, but what does it for me is its story and the world of the Wasteland, where Mickey Mouse has to fix a disaster he caused when he was fiddling with someone else's stuff in a twisted version of Disneyland, while making peace with his less successful older brother, Oswald the Lucky Rabbit. Even if it's all set in a world of cartoons, it's as if they're telling a true story, since there was a time when characters like Oswald, Horace Horsecollar, Clarabelle Cow, and more were considered popular at the time. It's pretty much the best game that Disney has ever made without the help of companies like Capcom and Square Enix.
As you could probably imagine, I got totally hyped up hearing that there's gonna be an Epic Mickey 2. Thinking about the new levels, new characters, and even new awesome boss fights. But what really got me excited is that the people at Junction Point said that they would fix all the problems from the first game.
And to their credit, they actually did. Not only is the camera a lot better in this one, and now there's full voice acting in the game, but they add in a lot more to the gameplay. With Oswald, it's really practical now that you can hover around, help you out on battles by stunning enemies, even sometimes reviving you after you run out of hit points. It even has some new elements that would give you some upgrades, like the Spirits of the Wasteland and the costumes. The last one mentioned is probably my favorite addition to the second game, because not only you get a special upgrade from it, but they even look cool as well. I mean, who wouldn't want to play this as Sorcerer Mickey? Also, one thing I was surprised to see that improved from the first game was the animated cutscenes. It somehow seems cleaner and even more fluid while respecting the same Mary Blair style it had before.
Now these things sound really great and all, but does it make it even better than the first Epic Mickey? No. Not even as good. Let me explain.
First off, the story is definitely not as good as the first game. It's not even good, period. It's just a dull story of Mickey and Oswald trying to save Wasteland that ends up being very predictable from top to bottom. It doesn't have any of the dramatic elements that made the first one so memorable. There's no sense of real danger towards Mickey, nor any danger that he had caused, like the Thinner disaster. There's no conflict between Oswald and Mickey, and there's not as much new forgotten characters for them to interact with. At the most, there are the 3 little pigs and the float version of Elliot the Dragon, but there's not even much interaction there. And I think that's what disappointed me the most about this game. One of the things I love to do in the first Epic Mickey is to meet some old characters I haven't seen in a long time. I mean, I was ready to go and meet some characters like, I don't know, Clara Cluck or Big Al from Country Bear Jamboree. But I guess the people at Junction Point prefer to keep their new Disney references as decoration for their levels. To its credit, the story would reach a level of, in lack of a better word, epicness of the first Epic Mickey. But even at that point, it's too late because it's at the end of the game. Speaking of which, that's another thing I didn't like about this game, how the levels are set out. I think we can all agree that Epic Mickey is set up like a Zelda game. After you defeat a level, you go back to your main hub where you can buy some useful stuff, which is Mean Street, and you have the option to do some side quests along the way, whether it be from Horace or some gremlins. In Epic Mickey 2, however, you don't often go to Mean Street as before. It's not like you can go to anywhere from Mean Street. First, you have to go to Bog Easy, then into Blood Alley, and then you have to go to a memorabilia of what you did in the first game, then you go to Fort Wasteland, then you have to go into the Float Yard, then you have to battle a boss, and then you finally return to Mean Street. Now, just going through all that without a Mean Street break seems like a lot on your plate, and considering that there's plenty of side quests in Mean Street alone, and they pile up with more side quests as you move along, you'll just end up forgetting to do some of them. Also, because that you don't often go back to Mean Street, the game feels surprisingly short. You can probably beat the whole game in 8 hours, give or take. Another thing I wanted to talk about here is that some of the levels aren't as awesome as before. You don't feel like you're in a dark, twisted version of Disneyland anymore. Granted, there are some levels that do get that spark from the first game, like the Float Yard, but then there are places like Fort Wasteland and Autotopia that feels more like generic level town with some old Disney memorabilia scattered around. Plus, since going through all this feels more like a chore as it moves on, the thought of this having replay value is just... no man, I don't want to do that again.
And I will say that even if the new additions are pretty good, they still have some hiccups on them as well.
Now, I'm sure that every fan of the game is happy to hear voice acting, but sometimes they would use it a little too much. Now, I'm not talking about...
Friends, I stand before you a changed man.
Yeah, I don't even want to talk about that. What I mean is that remember that in some games, they would leave some characters or a sign that tells you what to do at that moment? Well, for some reason, Gus and sometimes Oswald will do it automatically whenever you do something. And I don't mean like sometimes when you're stuck. I literally mean that he will give you a hint or say something every time you pick up something, break, move, or do whatever.
Both of you must work together to solve this problem. We found the entrance to the underground. Good show. Jolly good show, you two. The villains are taken care of. I'm sure the train conductor will be relieved. Ian usually likes to haunt the old town area of Bog Easy. I'd look there first.
You have successfully taken a dump. Now quickly, use the toilet paper to wipe your bum clean, and then flush the toilet so that the poo goes down the drain.
Another new thing that has issues is Oswald when you're alone. Even though, yes, his abilities do come in handy and adds on to the gameplay, but most of the time, I feel like he's a lazy rabbit. Sometimes, when you need him to use his remote, he'll just wander off or won't do jack, and when he does, it's either you can't do anything without him, or when it's unnecessary. I haven't played this in co-op, but there are times when it's very obvious that they made a design choice specifically for that. A good example is that most of the film reels you get in the projector segments can only be earned as Oswald. And forget about the computer getting it for you, because that ain't gonna happen. But I'm not saying that all of it is bad. There are some good things to say about Epic Mickey 2. Not only did they greatly fix up and add a few things, but also the game looks beautiful by respecting the looks of the first game and updating many of the old places. The score by Jim Dooley is just fantastic, and the controls are pretty good too. They may feel funny at first, but you'll get used to it.
And I think it's at that point where I can't say that it's a bad game. Sure, it doesn't satisfy my needs as a Disney fan, but it does have some nice graphics, a good score, and some decent controls.
Overall, while they did fix up the small problems of the first game, it lacks what makes its predecessor so good. As an Epic Mickey game, it's pretty disappointing, but as a game by itself, it's okay. Definitely not the greatest or most memorable game of the year, but still decent. If you're an Epic Mickey fan like me, I say go ahead and get it, but really lower your expectations. As for the non-fans, I say get the demo first and then determine if you want to buy it. When it comes to consoles, I played this on the Xbox 360, mostly because of the achievements and the HD graphics. I would say get this version instead of the PS3 and the Wii U, since I heard that those two have some issues. But if you value good controls over good graphics, then I say stick to the Wii version, because at least you'll feel at home with pointing the Wii remote than the second analog stick. As for the rating, for how it is, I'd give it a 7 out of 10.
It sucks that Epic Mickey 2 didn't end up being as good as I hoped for. But we all have to face some disappointments in life. Am I right? Oh well. Guess we'll have some better luck in Epic Mickey 3. But until then, see you later. Oh, wait a minute, not even! We still have another adventure at Wasteland to check out. So don't go anywhere, but until then, see you later, dudes.